Salud, amigos,
Greetings, friends,
tripulantes de
crew
nuestra
member
querida,
of our beloved,
contaminada y
polluted,
única nave
and unique
espacial.
spacecraft,
La misma que desde la
which,
última vez que nos vimos
since
por
the
estos
last
medios,
time
ha
we
dado
met,
otra vuelta
has
a su
taken
eje
another
original.
turn about its imaginary
Una
axis.
costumbre y menos mal.
And of course, it's better
Por
when
lo
it
tanto,
does.
si me ven sentado
So,
es que
if you
no
see me
voy al
sitting
mapa,
down,
sino
it is because I will
no
not be
tengo aquí
working
los
with the map,
invitados, tal vez yo, pero tenemos un
but
diálogo.
because we are
Este
going to
diálogo
have an
es muy
interview
importante.
or dialogue. And today's dialogue is very, very
Luego,
important.
sabemos de la fidelidad de nuestra
We
audiencia,
know
pero
how
ruego
faithful
prestarle
our
mucha
audience
atención a lo
is,
que vamos a hablar
but
aquí.
pay attention to
Dicho
the things
esto,
that we're
voy
going
a
to
hacer
say
una
here.
breve presentación que no
So
le
I
hace
will
justicia a los
quickly
respectivos currículos, pero
introduce
General de Brigada Roberto González
both of my
Cárdenas,
guests,
del
Roberto Gonzalez
Ejército
Cardenas,
Bolivariano,
Brigadier
en
General
situación
from the
de
Bulgarian
reserva
Army,
activa,
in
como
active
debería ser
reserve,
toda reserva.
as every reserve should be.
Doctor en Seguridad y
Doctor in
Desarrollo
Security
de
and
la
Development
Nación por
of the
querida
nation
UNEFA, Universidad
by
Nacional Experimental
UNEFA,
de las Fuerzas Armadas.
which is the University of the Armed
Magíster en
Forces,
Ciencias y Artes Militares,
Master
magíster
in
en
Science
Gerencia del
and
Personal,
Military Arts and
diplomado de
Personnel
curso
Management,
superior en Defensa Continental,
a diplomat in
diplomado de cursos
continental
superiores en Comando del
luggage,
Estado Mayor
and
número 32,
also in the Major State
licenciado en
number
Ciencias y
32,
Artes Militares,
a degree
todos los
in
cursos
Science and
correspondientes
Military
de la
Arts
Academia Militar,
with all the courses required for the
profesor,
Military
docente y
Academy,
conferencista por 33
professor
años en
for
las
33
universidades
years
nacionales,
in national
comandante
universities,
del 411
commander
Batallón
of
José Antonio
Battalion
Anzuategui,
411 José Antonio
comandante
Anzuategui,
de Unidad Fundamental en Frontera, año
commander in the
1983.
border in 1983.
Y nos acompaña Vladimir Adrianza Salas.
And we also have Vladimir Adrianza
Ambos grandes
Salas,
amigos de este programa,
both very good friends
pero
of this
tuve
show.
que respetar la derecha, ¿no? Por
But I
grado y por
had
antigüedad.
to start with the most
Magíster
senior
Cienciario
one of
en
my
Relaciones
guests,
Internacionales,
Master in
egresado
International
del
Relationships
Instituto de Altos Estudios
from
de la
the
Defensa
Institute
Nacional,
of High Studies
referido
Missile
IAED,
Defense,
doctorado en Seguridad y Desarrollo Integral
Doctor
de
in
la UNEFA,
Security
nuestra muy
and
querida
Development of the UNEFA,
UNEFA, licenciado en Administración, ingeniero de sistemas,
a
investigador en el
degree
área de economía
in
y
management,
geoeconomía y geopolítica,
investigator, as
docente de
well
posgrado del
as a
Instituto de Altos
professor
Estudios
of
de la Defensa
postgraduate
Nacional
studies
y del
of the
Instituto
Institute
de
of High
Altos Estudios
Studies
Diplomáticos Pedro
of
Oval,
Pedro Oval
docente de
Institute, a
pregrado de la
teacher
Universidad Central
of the Central University
de Venezuela, de la Universidad Católica
of
Andrés
the
Bello,
Catholic
y en
University
cátedras
Andrés Bello,
asociados a los temas económicos, geoeconómicos,
and in
geopolíticos,
other
petroleros
topics related
y
to
energéticos.
oil, geopolitics, and
Articulista,
energy.
ergo, ambos son colegas en esto.
So you're
Aunque ambos
both
son grandes
colleagues
comunicadores.
because both of you are great
Doctor y
communicators,
administrador del blog
doctor and manager
180
of Block
grados
180
IZQ, es
degrees,
decir, India, Zulu,
ICQ.
Quebec.
So
Y eso
India,
será
Zulu,
izquierda,
Quebec.
¿no?
This is the
180
left, of
grados
course.
izquierda.
180
Izquierda,
left.
izquierda. Y analista internacional.
An
por supuesto.
international analyst.
Yo tengo la esperanza de que no voy a
I
hablar
hope
casi nada en este
not to
programa, y
speak a
voy a
lot
disfrutar
during this show
de
and
tremendos
enjoy
catedráticos aquí, y esto lo
both
digo en honor a nuestros televidentes porque
of the
como nos ven en
professors
todo
that
el
I
hemisferio,
have here.
es muy bueno que sepan
We are
de qué están hechos
watching
los catedráticos venezolanos y
two
sobre todo
people
los
that are very,
generales
very interesting and very
venezolanos, que
important
al
in
resto de los
Venezuela.
países no se les puede tocar ni con
And
una
the
caña de
rest of the
pescar.
countries will need to understand
Adelante,
how
por
they
derecha, mi
think.
general.
So we're going to start
Muchas
with the
gracias,
right,
Walter,
General.
nuevamente por invitarnos
Thank you,
a este
Walter,
programa,
once again for your
inclusive
invitation to this
a
show.
Vladimir, a mi persona,
For
y
myself
ambos
and Vladimir,
somos miembros de la
we are both members
Cátedra Geopolítica y Paz
of
de la
the class
UNEFA,
Geopolitics
UNEFA,
and
Universidad Nacional
Peace
Experimental
of the
de las Fuerzas
UNEFA,
Armadas.
the
Aquí
University of the
enviamos
Armed
un saludo
Forces.
a
We would like to
todos
send them our
los
greetings.
Me voy a dar la bomba de decir que soy
Let me
tengo el
say
honor de ser
that
profesor de UNEFA y además me honraron con el
I
doctorado.
am
Aparte de eso,
a
te estamos
professor
también
from
invitando para
UNEFA.
que pertenezcas
We're
también a la
also
Cátedra
invited you
Geopolítica
to
y Paz, que
become
es
a part
cuestiones
of
de
this
por eso traje
class as well.
yo
That's
te
why
regáltelo.
I brought
Caramba, yo
my
pensé-
own pointer to give it to
Ese no
you.
venía. Eso
No,
sí
es
es
que
un
aparte
puntero.
I thought you
vamos a
brought it
trabajar
for
en la-
Para el
different
tamaño
reasons.
del mapa y mi
Sí.
tamaño, que cuando entré a la Fuerza
Well,
Aérea apenas me sobraron 2 centímetros.
I
por
was
encima mío,
only
ese puntero
2
que me viene
centimeters
de-
bigger than
para que
the
podamos trabajar
need for the armed
con
forces.
mayor
So
comodidad,
this
lo que
is
se llama
in order
ese
to
mapa
work in the
móvil, que
future with the world
realmente
map.
dice muchas cuestiones, como tú
That
mismo
says a
dices,
lot
el
of
crecimiento
things
pleno de desarrollo.
Sí, señor.
and
Ahora
the
bien,
plentiful development that you often
quería
call.
también, aparte de eso,
I also
agradecerte,
wanted
aclarar un concepto que
to clarify a
en
concept.
un programa anterior, cuando
During a
y
previous
lo digo
show,
porque mucha gente,
I
tanto
say
Vladimir
this
como mi
because a
persona
lot of
nos paran en
people,
la
both
calle,
for
nos
me and
dicen,
Vladimir,
"Mire, ¿cuándo
people
ustedes van a
ask
estar
us in the
con-
street.
con Walter
They
nuevamente?"
ask
O
us,
nos
when are
dicen,
we going
"Mire,
to be
vamos a
once
hacer
again in
un
Dossier?
día completo con Walter." Y yo,
And
"Mire,
then they
pues,
say,
eso está en nuestras
you need
manos."
to have a whole
No,
day with
está
Walter.
en los
And we
productores
tell
del
them,
programa,
well,
está en
it's
todo
not
el
about us, it's about the
Cúmplase,
producers.
¿no?
So
Pero
let it be.
la gente que nos pide, nos para. Y hay profesores que inclusive
So there
en
are
el día de hoy
certain
estuvimos hablando sobre el
professors, and
concepto
we have
de
been going to speak about the concept of a state-nation.
Remember,
Remember? State-nation. This is a concept that's applicable. Well, back then, I was speaking about a state-nation, and it was because at the end of the Westphalia War, there were many different philosophical, political aspects that created the concept of a state-nation in Westphalia, Mississippi. 1684, and then Thomas Hawke with the Leviathan started with the mother states, the nation states. Today with one of the other professors we were discussing from a geopolitical point of view about this, because the state-nation is applied for the state-nation they're going to speak about in Colombia, the Colombian state-nation, also one from the States, and we're going to speak about this today as well. But in the case of Venezuela, and this is very clear, and this is stated by the Constitution, Article number 1, when it states that the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela is free and independent and bases their patrimony and values of equality and peace internationally in the doctrine of Simón Bolívar, the Liberator. And it continues. They are rights that cannot be waived from the nation. They speak about the nation, not the nation state. And in 1961 they included the state. However, this one only includes the nation. So I wanted to clarify this. I will continue reading the article. This is our unwaivable rights: independence, sovereignty, immunity, territorial integrity, and self-determination. So, what do we mean by this? Within the Venezuelan nation, we have the state, and there's also a civil society. So our nation is made up of both the state and the civil society. So when we speak about the nation of Venezuela, it is expressed on our constitution, and this is a discussion that was shown, and even today a good friend of ours spoke about this, and he is right. We needed to clarify the concept. So whenever I speak about the Chinese nation-state of the People's Republic of China, or their state, or Colombia, they don't speak about a nation-state. However, our constitution speaks about this, because it also speaks about the civil society, because we are part of the civil society. Myself, Vladimir, we're all part of this. Everyone, every single member of the crew are part of this. So, this is something needed to be clarified for us to understand and manage our constitution. So once again, let's go back. The difference between state and nation-state. Just to continue and end with this point. A state-nation, in Colombia, for example, the state-nation of the states, and any other state-nation of the world. And even when you speak about a nation-state in different fora, there's a confusion, because they have this concept from Westphalia until now, all the modern states. However, our Constitution of 1999 explains this. So the Venezuelan nation, as a nation, has for itself a state and a civil society, and they both create the Venezuelan state. Nevertheless, just to avoid confusions in our audience, within the nation of Venezuela, we have different nations. The Pemon nation, the Guajira nation. There are many indigenous communities that are also nations. However, within their nations, they don't have a state. So this is something we needed to clarify, just to work well around these concepts and try to avoid any type of mistakes related to this. I am saying this because there's a survey about this where professors and academics keep this concept, and they often ask, why are you speaking about a state nation? Because if we're going to speak about the first person who spoke about the mother state nation, and we speak about the rest of the professors, and we even go through the French Revolution and reach Bolivar, and we speak about the Bolivarian Revolution. So this is speaking about today, and it's what's happening today in Venezuela. So we realize what it is here, and we have some slides, and part of this, well, the director is going to show them. Please focus them. The coordinator is asking us for some time. Let's continue. Okay, so let's use it. I have it here next to me. So what's the problem we have here in Venezuela? We are facing a situation. Here it is. This is the one that I wanted to show. Here we have a problem of a structure. So we're going to call it structural problem because there are different myths that are part of this problem, but it is specifically about capitalism against the 21st century socialism. There are two different models that are fighting today. The capitalist model with Adam Smith and the World Nations, 1976, and then President James Monroe with the Monroe Doctrine to establish and take advantage of the wealth of the nation. But what are the nations that we speak about? Because then John Sullivan, who was a reporter, he spoke about the manifest and spoke about the ownership of a nation and going even to the south of the Mississippi River. So then, in 1913, 1912, William Howard Tack, we were speaking about this today, he stated that it's not far away in order to see the flag of the United States from the North Pole going through Panama and up to Patagonia, single flag. What do we mean by this? This means that basically this thought, this concept, the concept of wanting to own the whole hemisphere of America for the Americans is for them, not for us. So we have an ongoing process of capitalism against socialism. There are two different streams. Why do we speak about 21st century socialism? Because we start with the Bolivarian Revolution from the speech of our liberator Simón Bolívar in 1819, where he framed the fundamental elements of what today the Bolivarian Revolution is. And after that, in order to keep it short, President Hugo Chavez brings all these concepts of revolution, the Bolivarian concepts, and brings the constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. And what do we have here? Well, it speaks about the Bolivarian Revolution. So this is already the Bolivarian Revolution. And when we speak about 21st century socialism, they speak and answer. Article number 2, it speaks that it's a state of law, of society, and justice. So here's where we start. This is a great constitution with a lot of progress. And many countries would envy this constitution because we're even considered elements as our world reference, because here we are having a clear revolution. It's different than revolution in other parts of the world. When we say that even President Chavez, when Commander said that the 21st century socialism is love and that the first socialist of this revolution was Jesus, well, when you start thinking about socialism in the Catholic Church, there's a social theory that speaks about love. And even Pope John Paul spoke about this, about the social theory of the Catholic Church. And it speaks about love. What you see today on Pope Francis, who also speaks about love in human beings in order to bring back the church from all these points. Nevertheless, that problem that is shown between the states, please project this slide that I have here. It is here, excellent, perfect. So here we have the commander, Kurt W.T., who's applying a fifth-generation war. Why is this war created? We need to understand that this is a structural problem. So when did this problem started? In 1953, where the CIA, and you can see it on the documents that have been declassified, they already had studies of Venezuela about what Venezuela had underground in their soil, oil as strategic elements, as strategic minerals, of course, beyond oil. And out of the 28 strategic minerals that they determined as strategic, this is 1953, out of the 28, they had already determined that there are 17 of those here. And they are not speaking about thorium, or potassium, or tungsten, or uranium. They're not speaking about this within these 17 minerals. So already in 1952, Truman had left Eisenhower this idea. This is Venezuela. And if Venezuela is what President said in 1912, who said that from Alaska to the Patagonia, the flag of the States will show, well, they're already creating a base in front of the Falklands that was built by the United States. And even the president who came after said that in order to control and colonize, they needed to invest. And he said, you control through investment. This is said by Woodrick, based on his own doctrine. Now, the states, from a geopolitical point of view, they use the so-called Nicholas Spitman geopolitics, and it is the exact opposite of Mackinder, because he spoke about the heartland, the one that is located in Eurasia. Heartland. So just let me show you where it is. So when Nicholas Spitman, no, actually when Mackinder spoke about Eurasia, the heart, the core of the world was located here for Mackinder, in this sector here. Today, what can I say about this, with all due respect for you and for Vladimir? When he speaks about this and says that we're going to see the flag of the States from Alaska to Patagonia, and even here in the Panama Canal, that we are going to be painted with an American flag, then what does it mean that the flag was going to be painted here? So then we need to consider both concepts of Mackinder and Spitman. So the concept, the geopolitical concept, this is part of my theory, the heartland of the hemisphere is here in Venezuela. We're speaking about the heart of the land, that's why heartland, because here we have all the wealth in the world. When you listen to someone who says Venezuela is in bankruptcy, you simply don't understand. And you try not to say anything to avoid a bad moment. But how can a country that has the greatest oil reserve in the world be in bankruptcy? And when it becomes certified, it will be the most important gold reserve of the world. And they have thorium. And thorium is way more expensive than oil. And this is full of thorium. That's why the name of that mountain is called Impacto. It means impact. And a huge part of this that is in the south of Venezuela, there are parts of this area that are still virgin. They're still uncharted. And we have tungsten. And we were reviewing Callao in these days. He knows this very well because we're checking this. Tungsten is a mineral that in order to be melted requires 3200 degrees. And in Callao, they create rings out of tungsten, and it's even more expensive than gold. And how they have this technology? Well, because they do so with tungsten, and you can find it here in Callao. And what do they use it for? Well, it's a strategic mineral and material even for the States, for the special arms race. When we say, or when we listen that Venezuela is in bankruptcy, they're wrong, because it's the first oil reserve and the first gold reserve in the world. There's a strip in Carabobo that goes up to Guarico, and it goes through three states of gold. So it goes through 3 states. Well, those who are watching us from the south, going through 3 different states would be like to go through the whole country of Uruguay. Yes,
el
almost.
estado Amazonas,
And the
el estado
state
Bolívar y el
Amazonas,
estado
as
del
well as the
Tamacuro,
Bolivar state
¿no?
and the
hacen casi el
Tamacuro state,
54%
they
del
add up to
territorio
almost
nacional.
54%
O
of
sea,
our
si
national
colocamos
territory.
todo lo que está
So if
al
we
norte del
place
río
everything
Orinoco,
in the north of
¿no?
Orinoco River,
es menor que lo que encontramos
we
al
don't
sur
have
del
as
río
much
Orinoco.
as
Sí,
what
me
we
entero que se
can
llama
found
la zona de reclamación,
south.
que es Guyana.
So this is the
¿No?
Guyana
Ahora
zone.
bien, voy a sentarme para darle, porque aquí
Now,
vamos a trabajar lo que es la parte
we're going
de
to
la geopolítica.
speak about
Con lo
geopolitics,
que
and
yo
we're
traía ahí,
going
la
to
lámina que
do
traje allí de ese brazo,
so
donde el
with
señor
the
Kurz, doble tip, ¿no? nos aplica lo que él dijo en
okay,
su
with
documento
the words
Venezuela
of
Freedom 2,
Mr.
o
Tip
prácticamente
of Venezuela
lo que
Freedom
es,
2,
habló el golpe
and
maestro,
when they speak
que
about the master
supuestamente
strike.
van a utilizar la operación
And it's
UNITAS
going to be
para
used,
el mes de, empieza el 15 de septiembre y
it will start
finalizando
on
para el mes
September
de
15th,
octubre, que por
and it
cierto,
will finalize
hay
in
una periodista
October.
argentina
And there's
quien
an
desarrolla
Argentine
ese tema
journalist who
de
speaks
investigación
about this.
sobre, al respecto.
Estela Caloni.
Estela Caloni.
Stella Caloni.
Estela Caloni.
Sí,
Ah,
muy
okay,
conocida.
okay, okay. I know who you're
que la
speaking about.
desarrolla, y ese punto
And she
de
speaks
vista,
about this, and this
cuando ella
point of view,
desarrolla ese tema que son
when
las
she
operaciones
speaks
UNITAS,
about
las operaciones
this,
UNITAS se han venido dando
well,
de
this
la,
operation,
prácticamente
UNITA's
de
operations, have
principio de la
started
década del
since
70,
the
1962,
60s,
si no me
since
equivoco,
1962,
¿no?
if
Para
I'm not
acá.
mistaken,
Inclusive Venezuela
ever
venía
since,
participando. Ahora bien,
and Venezuela has been participating with this.
aquí hay una
However,
constitución que es especial.
there's a very interesting conversation about
UNITAS,
this.
Colombia no era
Here,
parte, el Estado colombiano,
Colombia,
el Estado, el
the
gobierno
Colombian
colombiano,
state, the
que
Colombian
firmó
state
con los Estados Unidos para lo que es
did
las
not
nuevas
sign
bases
this
militares.
for the new
No era
military
parte de la
bases. It
OTAN, ahora
wasn't
es
a
parte de la
part
OTAN.
of the
Y
NATO, but
participa
now
ahora,
they are,
invitado,
and they
la
participate
Unión,
as
la
guests
Inglaterra,
with
el
England,
Reino
with the
Unido,
United Kingdom.
participa invitado
They participate as
como
guests,
elemento de la OTAN.
as a member of the NATO.
No se puede analizar.
So
Sí,
if
bueno,
you are to analyze
aquí
this,
tenemos operación UNITA.
you can see that
¿Qué
there's
se
the
traen esta gente?
UNITA's operations.
Porque
So
tenemos
you
una
have to
lámina por aquí
think,
que
what are
la
these
vamos a
people
sacar
up to, right?
ahorita
So
y lo
we
vamos a
have
discutir
some
aquí con
information about this that we're going to
Vladimir.
discuss with Vladimir.
En la cual las 7 bases
And they show that the
están en Estados
7
Unidos y la
bases
investigación que
of their
hizo
states, together with the
Rosso,
research
Grimao.
Rosso,
Rosso Grimao.
by Rosso Rimao,
que hizo allí, y tenemos su lámina,
who
donde
carried
hay
these
inclusive,
studies, and we
sí,
have
y de acuerdo
information
con
about
Rosso,
this.
dice que hay
And according
5
to
bases
him, there are 5
de la
bases
CIA,
of the
de
CIA,
mercenarios de la CIA, que
of
fueron los mismos que
mercenaries of
aplicaron
the
en
CIA.
Libia.
They are the ones that were used in Libya as
Parte de
well,
la estrategia
as
que
part
Arreo
of the
tiene,
strategy.
lo está metiendo aquí.
So they're basically just
Sin embargo,
changing their
okay,
place, and they're bringing it
Nos,
here.
el almirante Kurz WT
However,
nos dice a nosotros
Card W tip
que le vamos a someter a
lets us know
Venezuela bajo operaciones
that
psicológicas.
Venezuela is going to be
Todo lo que
submitted
es
under
una guerra de
psychological
quinta
operations,
generación.
so a fifth
Esa
generation
guerra de
war.
quinta generación
So the fifth generation war
nos dice a nosotros, la
states,
guerra de quinta generación,
the fifth generation war
es
shows
multifacética,
that it comes from
multidimensional,
different faces,
pero
different
nos lleva hacia la
dimensions,
parte mediática,
but it
hacia la
takes
parte
us
económica, la
towards
parte
the media,
financiera, la
towards
parte
the
política, la
economic
parte
area,
social,
the
y ahora
financial
tiene que
area,
ver la
the
parte
political
militar.
area, and now the military area as well.
Senador Paul Coverdale, primer
Senator
ponente
Paul
del Plan
Coverdale,
Colombia,
who
decía,
was
para
one
controlar a
of the
Venezuela,
first
es
of Plan
necesario
Colombia,
ocupar militarmente a Colombia.
stated that in order
Ya
to
vamos para
control
allá para
Venezuela,
que
they needed to
explicarte cómo va
occupy
todo
Colombia.
ese tipo de
We're
operación.
going to speak
Y
about this
nuestra-
just to let you
de
know
nuestra
about this type
percepción
of
desde el punto de vista
operation
de la cátedra,
and
que
appreciation
hemos
from the point
discutido
of view
bastante.
of being professors. We have
Nos lleva
discussed this
que
widely.
sí es verdad que con la
We
guerra de
know
quinta
that
generación,
with the fifth
ellos
generation
han
war,
generado
they have
un
generated
conflicto,
a
porque la guerra
conflict,
es el conflicto,
because war is
¿no?
of course a
Pero cada
conflict.
elemento,
However,
nosotros
every
lo
single
dividimos, como
element,
dice nuestra constitución, por ámbitos.
we are divided in
varios de
areas
esos
according
ámbitos
to our
que establece la
constitution,
ley
and in many
constitucional
of
nos
the
habla
different
del ámbito
areas,
económico, del
they
ámbito
speak about the
político, el social,
economic
el
part, the
cultural, el
social
geográfico,
part,
el
the
ambiental y el
cultural
militar.
part, and
Son
also
7
about the
ámbitos.
military part, because
De
there are
esos
7
ámbitos,
different areas.
sí,
Out
es
of these
verdad,
areas,
han generado crisis.
they have
Que tenemos
indeed generated
que manejar
crisis,
el conflicto
and
y
we need to
gerenciar la
manage the
crisis.
conflict and also to
Y eso es
manage the
muy
crisis.
importante.
And this is very important.
Manejar el conflicto
Manage
y
the conflict
y gerenciar la crisis.
and
Son dos
handle the
elementos
crisis.
Son dos
These
elementos
are two
diferenciados,
very
pero que
important
juegan
but
haciendo
different
un juego.
elements that
Sí,
work
señor.
together
Es así.
in unison.
Entonces, no vamos a gerenciar el conflicto.
So we are
vamos a
not
manejar el
going
conflicto, y para
to
eso se requiere,
handle but
¿no?
manage the
un
conflict.
comité de
And
alto
for
nivel
this, we need a
político,
high-level
militar,
committee
inclusive ahí
that's
entraría
both
lo que se
political
llama
and
el CEO,
also
porque
from
es,
the army.
es
And
el
here we
conflicto,
have
una
the
guerra, como
CEO.
Comando Estratégico
Comando
Operacional.
The
Estratégico
CEO
Operacional.
is the
Y para
Strategic
eso-
Operational
y para
Command.
eso
And for this, the one in charge is the president. He is the commander-in-chief, of course. And additionally, for the conflicts that take place here that are being applied against us through the psychological operations that have been against different areas, we've been doing well. And last year, the president called for the Constituent Assembly for this subversive, low-intensity movement, which stabilized peace in the Republic. Then there were elections for governors and mayors, and of course, after that, this year, the presidential elections. So politically, we have progressed. From a social perspective, we have also progressed, but we've done so slowly because we need to work with communities. So we have a thesis called CLAP, and it has the establishment of the base of a new social statement for Venezuela. Now, all of this is applied by the government of the states, economic groups, and national and foreign allies against Venezuela. So this is applied against Venezuela, and it, of course, generated a crisis. And then we need to manage this, and then we need to work with this. And for this purpose, even in the military part, let us show the graph. The first map. Not that one. Map number 1, please, of what we brought. So, even in that map, we have the 7 military bases of Colombia, and that's the map of the conflict. So the strategy is to take over the natural resources of our country. This is the strategy of war, that we're speaking about. So what's the strategy? Through this operation to take over the resources of oil and strategic minerals of Venezuela, to take over and control them, because not only owning them, but also controlling them. So in order to control them, they need to destroy the Constitution of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, because the Constitution establishes that it's not allowed, because these resources are for the Venezuelans. There it is. This is the map. So this map that we have here, it's very interesting, because here we can see that Venezuela, well, there are 33 North American flags, right? Beautiful, right? So we're speaking about the 7 bases plus the other 2 bases that are there. And we even have the basis of the groups. It would be interesting to see this. The Caribbean became the Mare Nostrum. Okay, let's speak about this, and we'll speak about the military area and speak about what this would mean, about the military structure on the Colombian side and how it is oriented against Venezuela. And the base in Monterola, in Honduras. I was in Monterola, and that's a super base. And when it was installed, as the legal framework stated that no facilities could be permanent, then it was like a bungalow. So they were able to dismantle this in just 24 or 48 hours. They had every single service needed there, the services required by a city, but they had their own TV station for leisure and their own FM stereo radio. So let's
Fíjate aquí
get this
en
and
ese
point
mapa.
this
Digo, no,
and
no
take a
tenemos
look
base
in this map.
permanente,
And
eso
they
es una
said, no, that's
instalación.
not a
No,
permanent
todo,
basis.
pero
That's
ahí
just a
Y la
facility.
conexión satelital con el
And
Pentágono.
the satellite connection with the
Precisamente,
Eso no
Pentagon.
me lo cuentan,
la
yo
base,
estuve ahí.
la base
And
principal que
I
tienen
know
ellos
about
para,
this
digamos,
because
el
for it
control.
firsthand.
No
Yes, this
solamente
is the
estamos
basis they
hablando de
have for
Venezuela,
control. We're
es
not
de lo que
speaking
estaba
about
el
only
señor
Venezuela.
presidente de los Estados Unidos en 1912 cuando decía que no
But
está muy lejos para ver la bandera de Estados Unidos desde Alaska
it
hasta
is
la
about the
Patagonia.
point
Entonces,
of
es el
seeing
punto
the
central
flag
para ellos
of the
tener
United
control.
States
Inclusive
through
geopolíticamente
the
ellos
whole
consideran que
world.
Venezuela,
So
el
they
Caribe
think that from a
venezolano,
geopolitical
¿no?
point, the
es
Venezuelan
estratégico
Caribbean
para ellos.
is
Inclusive
strategic for them.
es de interés vital. Y cuando
And they
hablamos de
even
interés
have a
vital,
vital
hay
interest
que
on it.
aclarar
And
ese
when we
punto.
speak
Es
about
interés
vital
vital.
Si es
interest, we
vital,
need
voy
to
a la
speak
guerra por
about
él.
this. If it's
Claro que
vital,
sí.
I will go to
Inclusive,
war for
para
it.
mí es de
Of
interés
course.
vital tener
And
oxígeno
for
para poder
me,
respirar. Igualito es para
vital
ellos. El
interest
interés
is
vital
to
para
have
ellos. Ahí no
oxygen
estamos
to
entre
breathe.
intereses vitales
And
de los
then you can
venezolanos
understand
o
what
de
it
los,
means.
de los ciudadanos
So
que cohabitamos
this
en
is
todos
of the
estos
interest
países.
of the people who
Entonces
live in
también
these
es
countries
interés
and
vital para ellos
Venezuelans
lo que es
too.
el delta
So for them,
de Amacuro.
the
¿no?
Amacuro
Para
Delta is
los países.
vital.
Fíjate lo siguiente, todas estas bases que están aquí a
And
lo
take a
largo de la
look at
frontera,
this
¿no? Lo
basis
podemos ver.
along the border. We can see
Inclusive,
it.
en estos días tú presentaste un programa
And
donde
you
una señora
already spoke about this in a show
mentía descaradamente
where a
sobre que
woman
nosotros
was
estamos
lying
tratando de
and
invadir.
saying
No,
that we
nosotros
are
estamos
trying to
queremos
invade. No,
invadir a
we're not
nadie.
trying to invade
nosotros
any
los
place.
Los colombianos mienten todos los días.
Sí.
No pasa
Colombians
nada.
lie every
Voy a
day.
dejar a Vladimir porque yo quiero agarrar
I'm
como
going
se
to
dice,
allow
me
Vladimir
decís, pero Roberto, ¿qué
speak
pasó?
because
No,
if
porque
not, I
Vladimir
will
trae
be the only
aspectos
one speaking here.
fundamentales,
Because there are
interesantes,
certain
con respecto
fundamental
inclusive a ese
topics
mapa,
about
¿no?
that
Que
map.
está allí. Aquí lo
The
tiene,
one
Vladimir.
there.
Te paso el
Here you
puntero.
go, Vladimir.
Buenas noches a todos los que nos
Good
escuchan.
evening, everyone
Gracias,
listening
Walter,
to
por la
us, and thank you,
invitación.
Walter, for inviting us.
Lo primero que hay que decir
First
para
of all,
redondear la idea que
just to round up
General
this
acaba de
idea
poner,
that the
lo
general just
siguiente.
exposed, we
Rosso
need to
de
say
Mao,
the following.
que fue quien el parlamentario venezolano que desarrolló este
The
mapa,
one
se
who
va a
developed
¿Puedes
this
repetir
map,
el nombre?
can you repeat his
Rosso
name?
Grimau.
Rosso
Rosso
Grimau.
Grimau.
Rosso
Él es
Grimau is his
miembro
name.
del Parlamento Latinoamericano
So
por
he's a member
Venezuela.
of the Latin American
En fin,
Parliament for
Rosso
Venezuela.
desarrolló ese mapa,
So he developed and created
hace
this
varios
map
años,
some
con
years
base
ago
a cruzar un conjunto de
in
informaciones
order
que
to
llegaron
cross-reference
que
some
obtuvo de
information
diferentes partes.
that he
Entonces, la
got from
conclusión que
different
ellos sacan,
places. So
cruzando esa
the
información,
conclusion
son
they
que
were
ahí
able to
habían
draw based on this
33 bases
information
militares, 5 establecimientos
were
de la
that
CIA,
there
pero
were
el
5
planteamiento
establishments of the
focal de
CIA.
en ese momento
However,
era
the
que
focus
alrededor de la
point
frontera
was that
venezolana
around
se desarrollara
the
un
Venezuelan
conjunto
border there
de
should
bases
be
de paz.
a group of
Esas
peace
bases
bases.
de paz,
Bases de paz.
What do you mean by
bases de
peace
paz. O sea,
bases?
¿cuál
¿Eso
es
qué
la idea?
eufemismo es?
So what type
Sí,
of euphemism
establecer
is this?
un cinturón
Well,
a lo largo de la
it is the
frontera
creation of
de
a belt
crear
throughout the
con
border
participación
to
nacional
create
e
with a
internacional
national and international
una
participation
suerte de cinturón que
a sort of
evitara
belt
justamente
that would
cualquier
avoid
penetración de
any
parte de
type of
Colombia
penetration from
en un
Colombia
elemento de guerra.
in a
Ellos
war
son de la
element.
orden.
Sí, por supuesto,
So
y
it's
la idea
about
era
Uncle
integrarse
Sam
de
waiting
esa
for them to
perspectiva,
give the order. And
para
from this
evitar
perspective, they
justamente
wanted
cualquier
to
conflicto.
avoid
Y
every
él
single
hizo ese
conflict.
planteamiento. Ese planteamiento
So there was
no,
this statement,
de
and this
repente no prosperó
statement,
del todo. Sin
well,
embargo,
it
tuvo
wasn't
mucha
perfect,
repercusión en su momento.
but it
Sin
had a
embargo,
lot of noise
el
created by this.
mapa que desarrolla
That the map,
Rosso,
the one
que así
developed
se
by
llama
Rosso,
el compañero Rosso Grimau,
that's his name,
tiene una gran
Rosso
valía,
Grimau,
puesto que de
is
alguna
very
manera va
valuable
identificando
because
como
it
nombre
somehow
incluso de todo el
identifies
continente, las diferentes establecimientos
throughout the
que en
continent the
Colombia
different
existen,
establishments
que
that
son
are in
utilizados, en este
Colombia
caso por los
that are
Estados
used
Unidos,
in this
en el
case by
marco
the
de
United
lo que es
States
la ocupación de
for
ese
the
territorio, porque vamos a
occupation
estar
of
claros,
this
eso
territory,
es un
because
país
let us be
ocupado.
clear that
Vamos a
it
estar
is an
este,
occupied country.
Colombia se bajó los pantalones con
Colombia
9
dropped
bases
their
gringas, y
trousers
además
with
están muy
9
felices de
American
habérselo
bases,
bajado.
and they're very happy
No
about doing so.
solamente eso,
Not only that,
definitivamente
they
han asumido
have
ese rol de la suerte
taken
de
this
Israel
role
continental
of
para
becoming
poder,
continental
de ahí
Israel,
proyectar el
and from
poderío
that
de los
point
Estados Unidos
project
y
the
para
power
mantener
of the States
justamente a los,
and
a
keep
la derecha, por decirlo así, a
the
la
Paralelismo
right wing.
es absolutamente adecuado. ¿eh?
Sí.
But
a
this is
Israel
exactly
continental.
what
Y él
they
dice
want,
Israel
what you said,
continental, y
continental
además esa
Israel.
cuestión para sostener
And they
a la
also
derecha
want
de
to
esa
do so
nación
in
que
order to
200
keep
años, como
the
dijo
right wing of
la
their
propia
nation that for
Piazza
200
Roberto
years,
Díaz en una entrevista con
and there
Roberto
was an
González,
interview interview with Rafael Correa this year that provided this information. So it's the only way they have used to keep power, taking the life of many people. And of course, since the 90s, with the creation of the militia, and the Israelis trained their combat pilots. If I say everything that I know, you will no longer have a voice. But listen, all the Israelis, with all the modifications they have, are based on what you mentioned, and particularly the scenario would be to create the internal conflict in Colombia and to have a fight between these two. So in a war hypothesis, the one who comes to attacking that plane could be a Colombian or an Israeli, unless you kill them or they can be ejected. But either way, a Kefir plane, well, it cannot be used for a militia fight. This is what they wanted to say. Maybe I'm not as knowledgeable as the general in the arts of war. However, logic states this is not applicable for this. This is the French Mirage, whose blueprints they stole. So this is basically what it is. They stole this, and they did so. And then they say, well, I was in the Cofier factory. I was in Israel after a fight we had here. So I was allowed to be in the cockpit of a Cofier. And he told me, well, you were in the Air Force. Do you think this is a Mirage? This is different. Yes, of course, completely different. Walter, with the technology that you added, but it's the same Mirage, whatever you do. So the real point here is that in all this map, it can clearly be demonstrated what you've said in your show for quite a while. The point of view of Paul Coverdale. Paul Coverdale undoubtedly, in order to dominate Venezuela, well, Colombia must be occupied militarily, and that's why this is happening. But an occupied country with a very particular strategy, which is combating drugs and fighting against drugs, they start with Plan Colombia, then they have the Patriota Plan, and then all the other plans that we have so far. And there is a drill, to give it a name. A drill because practice, ever since the agreement was signed, the peace agreement was signed in 2016 and until now, that hasn't been fulfilled. Of course it hasn't. There are 300 dead people. And this is even said by Piedad Córdoba, 300 people killed. This number needs to be added to the people who were killed during the Unión Patriótica, all that disappeared. She speaks about a group of elements that call our attention. They are the following. Internal refugees, about 7 or 8 million. Of course, the militia in full operation until today. And according to the numbers, there were around 43,000 disappeared. She mentions that there's over 60,000 people disappeared, and the biggest collective graveyard of the world. Yes, and something that really impacted me, because honestly, I hadn't seen this before, because I think it's awful. What she calls a picky house. What is this? Well, it's a place where they disappear people, they kill people. And this is, of course, atrocious from any point of view. But Walter, in general, we need to add something, which is the relationship between this power in Colombia, this occupation, and another detail, which is the drug industry. The drug industry undoubtedly calls our attention with a different detail, something that's public as well. Remember that according to Oxfam, they state that 81% of harvesting lands of Colombia are ownership of 1% of the population of this country. Please go to the next slide. So it's like colonialism. Yes, it's almost like colonialism. And not this one, the next one, please. Not this one, the next one, the next one, next one, next. There. So there in that slide you have on screen, you can see the growth. There's been a 52% increase between 2016 and 2017, the surface of coca production of coca. The vertical bars are coke. coca,
lo que
yes.
llama la atención
And
de esa cuestión
what
es que
calls our
ha
attention
subido,
from this
subió entre
is that it
2016 y
increased
2017
between 2016 and
el
2017
52% del cultivo de
52%
coca.
of
Y entonces uno
coca
dice, bueno,
production.
si el 52%
So if
del cultivo de
52%
coca,
of coca
la
production,
coca ha subido,
well, if
en el
the amount of coca
52%
has
y más de
increased
los
in
campesinos se están
52%,
muriendo de hambre, puesto que la
however, the
paramilitares
farmers
no los
are
dejan
dying of
sembrar los
famine
cultivos
because the
tradicionales
militia will not
a
allow
quien
them
pertenece
to
esos
use their
cultivos.
traditional
Si el 81%
products,
de las tierras
then
cultivables del
81%
país
of the
pertenece al 1%
croppable lands belong
de
to
la
1%
población.
of
Es
the
decir, que la
population. So
oligarquía
this means that
terrateniente
the
colombiana
oligarchy of Colombia,
narcoterrateniente
they
colombiana
are
es la que está
terrorists and
detrás de
drug
ese
dealers, and
cultivo,
they are the ones
impulsando todos
behind
esos
this
elementos, porque
harvesting,
le van a decir
fostering
que el
all
dueño del
these
terreno
elements,
sabe qué fue lo que
because the owners of the land
sembraron en
don't
ese
know
terreno.
what was
indiscutiblemente
planted
hay
there,
una
of course.
contradicción
And there's a
impresionante.
big
Entonces,
contradiction
ese
about this.
elemento es el que no ha logrado combatir todos el plan Colombia, el plan Patriota y el
So
plan todos
this
los
is
demás
about Plan Patriota, Plan
que
Colombia,
han
and
tenido
everything
aquí.
is.
Como tampoco ha logrado combatirlo
And they
nadie
haven't been
de la
able
presidencia de la República
to
ese
fight
plan, porque
anyone
forma
from the
parte
presidency
del
because this
mismo
is part of
No
the
llegan a la
same group.
presidenta si no entran en el juego.
No,
If they're
por
not
supuesto que
part
no.
of the game, they'll not be
Indiscutiblemente, ahí tienen un
presidents.
elemento que es
And
focal
here
y que
they
es
have a
fundamental
focus and clear
para poder
element
entender
in
la
order to be able to
geopolítica
understand
que se hace
geopolitics.
de parte. O sea, ¿por qué el
Well,
rol de la,
we need to
de la
understand
oligarquía
why the
colombiana
role of the
ha
Colombian
sido el
oligarchy
rol de sumisión desde
has
tiempos
been
de
a role of
Santander a los
submission
Estados Unidos,
ever
pero
since
cómo
Santander
ahora
to the
Traidor
States,
Santander.
the
Sí,
traitor,
traicionero,
Santander the traitor.
pero cómo, y con esto termino la idea,
I will close my idea
cómo
with this.
ellos hoy en día,
How
para
they today,
sostenerse en el poder,
in order to
echan
be
mano
in
de
power,
una ocupación de su territorio
they
para
use the
poder, a partir
occupation
de
of
allí,
their territories,
proyectarse
so from this point they
continentalmente
can
y
project
específicamente
to a
sobre
continental
la
level and
República
particularly
Bolivariana
over the
de Venezuela.
Bolivarian Republic of
Inclusive,
Venezuela.
quería acotar de que,
Let me add something.
Santander en 1828
Santander
inclusive se
in
encuentra, fue encontrado también inclusive
1818
culpable del atentado
was
contra el
found
Libertador.
guilty of the
Y
attack
es
against the Liberator,
degradado, inclusive es
and he was
sentenciado a ser fusilado por la
sentenced to be
espalda,
killed.
inclusive,
Como corresponde a un traidor.
como corresponde a un
Well,
traidor,
as it
y-
should
y de lo
happen
más-
with a
forma más
traitor,
deshonrosa. Es
and in the
Bolívar,
less honorable way.
prácticamente
But
todavía
Bolivar
el Libertador
was the one
pensando en salvar,
who's
porque
thinking
inclusive en la
about
Convención de Ocaña
saving
de ese
him
mismo año
because
también,
in the
¿no?
Ocaña
Inmediatamente ya le habían dado
ceremony,
la estocada a
well,
lo que se llama
they
al
were
proyecto
done
de
with the
bolivariano,
Bolivarian
¿no? Y ahí
project.
ya se está
So
cocinando lo que se llama
they
lo
were
que
already
posteriormente a la muerte
creating
del Libertador en 1830, la
what
famosa cosiata, donde
became
se separan
Cosiata,
la república.
where
El
the
proyecto de la
republics
patria
divided,
grande que
the
tanto
project
preocupaba a
of
los
the
imperios,
motherland
señor,
that
lo
the
estaban
empires were
bombardeando los
concerned about.
hermanitos
It
colombianos.
was
Pero
being
eso
bombed
viene
by
entonces
the Colombians.
también auspiciado, inclusive
But
cuando
this
le
was
dice
also
el
sponsored,
Libertador
and when the Liberator
al coronel Campbell,
told
los
Colonel
Estados
Campbell,
Unidos,
speak
voy a
about
leer
their
los
states,
Parecen destinados por la
providencia,
providencia
¿no?
they are destined to
la
bring
libertad.
misery to America in the name of freedom.
Son cuestiones que cuando
So
tú
these are
empiezas a
matters.
Esa
analizar,
frase es lapidaria.
That
totalmente,
phrase
Habría que tenerla en cada
should
escuela.
be part of
inclusive,
every single school.
En 1817
And in
ya los Estados Unidos
1817, the United States
estaban metidos de lleno enviando
were
pertrechos
already
militares
knee-deep
a nuestro
sending
territorio, a
armed
Venezuela,
forces
para
to
ayudar
Venezuela
al imperio colonial
to
español,
help the colonial
para que
empire of
no
Spain
triunfara la revolución que se estaba llevando a
for
cabo
the
en la
revolution not to triumph
Tú
in
veas
this
que desde aquel
republic.
momento, por eso cuando nosotros
So
hablamos,
from that point
esto
on,
es un problema
when we
que ya
speak
viene siendo
about this
estructurado
problem, that
desde
is a
aquel
structured
momento,
problem
desde
ever
Monroe
since
para
from
acá,
Monroe and
América
until
para
now,
América para ellos,
America
después
for the
del manifiesto,
Americans, after
luego
that there was the
justificaban
manifest
lo
where
que
they
era América para
justified
ellos.
what
Después
they
la señora en
believed
1912,
America for
donde
them
dice el
was.
presidente de Estados
Then in
Unidos,
1812,
el
President
que
States
no está muy lejos
stated
para ver la bandera de los Estados Unidos colocada
that
de
you're going to see the
Alaska,
American
pasando
flag
por
from
Panamá,
Alaska up to
hasta
Panama
hasta la Patagonia,
and reaching
ya están colocando
Patagonia.
una base pagada por los
So
Estados
they
Unidos,
already
abajo en la
have
Patagonia,
a
frente a la
base there
Malvinas.
below Patagonia in front of the Falklands.
Encontramos entonces a todo lo largo,
And
pero
there,
¿quién más está
throughout
detrás de
all of
de
this,
este problema?
we can see
Porque
it.
están los
But
recursos,
who
o sea,
else is
la cuestión
behind
es
this?
los recursos
Because,
que tiene Venezuela,
well, we need to
que son los
think about the
recursos
resources
minerales
of
estratégicos
Venezuela,
y el
and they
petróleo,
are
primera potencia
oil
del mundo
and
en recursos petroleros.
mineral
Y estamos a 4
products
días,
and resources.
mientras que en
And
el
we're
Medio Oriente
only
están
4
40 a
days ago,
45 días.
while the
Pero
Middle East is
resulta
45 days
que
away.
para eso, en ese
But
brazo
for
que lo
this,
están aplicando desde
in the
Colombia,
thing that
después
they're
de
doing
allí,
from
¿no?
Colombia,
encontramos nosotros bases militares que se
we
están
found
prestando
military
de los
bases
Estados
that are
Unidos,
being
y fíjate lo que
used
dice
by their
Vladimir,
states.
que dijo Piedad
And
que había crecido lo
Piedad
que se
said
llama el
that
aumento del consumo
they increased
droga.
of drug was there. And there is a very important point here. The expansion of drugs in Colombia is directly related to traditional crops, maize, rice, and others. What they use as food now, they're harvesting drugs. But in the case of Colombia, they have around 7 treaties of free trade. And it's a free trade agreement with the States. And the FTA with the Americans don't allow them to use their own seeds. And Colombia, which is an agricultural country, have destroyed the state, and they have destroyed the seed reserves because the free trade agreement demands from them to import seed from the States. Yes, because they start with the American seeds, they cannot be reused, and they are genetically modified, and this is a crime against humanity, because our ancestors would keep the seed and use it for the next harvest. This one is a GMO. It's useful only for once, and then if you don't buy it again, it's not worth it, and this is a crime against humanity, and we will not have anything else to it. This means to plant dependency for the corporations worldwide, specifically Monsanto and the others. They all work with food and agriculture, but here there's an even worse perspective. You wonder why there's a scarcity of food in Venezuela, and then we say that we don't produce enough. Well, we do have a productive deficit for as much as 100 years, and even in 1941 it was spoken about. But during the last years, this has come to an extreme. However, if we put together the fall of production in Venezuela and the extraction contraband in Venezuela is how they manage to take not only our fuel, because they smuggle as much as they can, and additionally what they do to take the rest of the things that we produce here by creating a lack of supply. And you understand with this that there's a process, and I have said this many times, that there's a lot of money laundering. Because how can you understand? Venezuela issues their currency, and then they pay 3 or 4 times the nominal value of every single bill. And they pay this with electronic deposits. So they keep this paper money, but they pay you 4 times this value, 3 or 4 times. So who is financing this? Because I think that no one does this in order to lose. So it's obvious that behind this there is a drug trafficking operation, as the one that was just evidenced months ago, where over 1,000 accounts were found in Banesco, and they are still under intervention. But this is part of an international agenda to launder the money that comes from drugs. So drugs today are working as an inhibitor of agricultural growth in Colombia, and they are using this for the smuggle of extraction in Colombia, because with this they pay all the money where they take the national production to supply the lacks they have in Colombia. And when I see the case of Piedad Córdoba, when she says Colombia is importing rice, is importing maize, and other things they didn't import before. So my question here is, where are they getting this from? Maybe some of this comes from the normal, the original area. However, the other part is, of course, going through Venezuela. And this is part of the approach that has been used in order to strike Venezuela on its economy. This is a perspective that has hit us very much, because it has destabilized the economic framework of our nation, and that, of course, requires an answer, and this answer must be a group of measures from the macroeconomic perspective, but also from the awareness of the population. Because, for instance, anytime there is a Venezuelan who has a note and they take it to the border, they are not realizing that they are going against their nation, because they're going against the place where they are born, where their children live, to the country that gave them everything, their citizenship, and even internationally. So they are going all against this. They're going against the name of the country. And this should be sacred for every person. For what? In order to quadruple something for the next speculator to get the money we're paid. So this is something that we should reflect on. So there's no honor behind this. These are the ethical and moral values that have been hit even with the psychological operations. And the ones that the journal is speaking about are related to all of this, because an important share of the plan that Estela Calani spoke, the master stroke, well, this is related directly to hit Colombia, to take away many values, and to take the Venezuelan away from their own territory and the interest of the nation, and with this part of the strikes that we are feeling today. Well, in the book, Loving Pablo, Hating Escobar, of this journalist who had a new face and a new identity. It's a very big book, it's a bestseller. Page 103, speaking about Dr. Barito. So without Dr. Barito, we would be bringing the drug with pneumatics to Florida. And this is according to the DEA. And the president, who even spoke ill about us. The first public position was the vice director. His first resolution was to create 40 private landing strips for drug traffickers, of course. Just let me say something. Here we have, throughout the border with Venezuela, and I have highlighted this in red. This is the north of Santander. This is Catatumbo of Colombia, where during February this year, they started displacing the indigenous communities there and the farmers of this area that is nearby Venezuela. And all this area, well, they were fighting for the crops of the coca leaf. They are there. So according to the press information and the journalists of the Colombian states, out of 1,200 staff of special operations were here in this border, in this part of the border, they added up to 12,000 people for special operations. How can you increase your number from 1,200 to 12,000? How can you increase this number? What do we mean by this? This is the north of Santander. Those who know the border, we're speaking about north of Cúcuta, and it goes throughout the border. Then you reach La Fría, you reach Guaramito, then Puerto Santander, and you continue. Then there's Tibú and other areas. So there are a group of elements there, and they're fighting for drugs there. But now there are 12,000 people for special operations there. So what is this, a directorate or what? So we're speaking about the special forces, and think about the false positives. Because the size of the army, it's almost a division. If you try to understand the reason why, well, this happened during this semester. This is very, very recent. So what type of security problem this brings to the border? Well, in the bordering area, we have spoken with many professionals who are in charge of the observatory of the Ministry of the Border. There we have our good friend Izquierdo Torres and also General Vivas and many other professionals who are working hard in this area. And I was speaking to them and they told me, listen, General, Here in this area, they are fighting over the control of the coca leaf. And this, from the Venezuelan side, they have also planted this because we don't have a strip dividing the two countries. So anyone who can say this is someone who has never been in the border, because often people would just go to Colombia without really knowing, and you would need a GPS to understand that you are in the other side of the border, or you were in a helicopter and all of a sudden you would realize that you have to turn around. And if you do this, of course, in an aircraft, the same thing will happen. But in this area here, well, the FARC were there, who were reluctant. Well, there were only around 400 people, according to the press information. And they also had some forces of the ELN and other elements. So there, in this order, basically they were displaced by the military forces of Colombia for special operations. But why? What is the reason behind this to bring all these people? For the control of the coca leaf? Or is there something behind creating false positives in order to include the NATO now? Because the son of Uribe, Ivan Duque, of course we're speaking about him, who also comes from the same family. He likes the Uribe side and he is part of drug trafficking. He is number 82, and this is not according to me but the DEA. And they have him some files on him. And with these records, he will not save himself unless he will do anything. So he's still not president, he's already threatening Venezuela. I don't want to leave the show without thanking Walter for the support that you've given to myself and my wife for getting the medicine that is vital for her life. And also mention Mr. Lucido Luna, who's a very humble person, a wonderful person, one of the best ones. And he was the one from his own pocket gave us the medicine we required, an important amount of it. Mr. Ricardo Abut, the Pequiven agency, and General Avila, Dr. Maria Angela Romero, Mr. Gustavo Villapol, Dr. Ricardo Portillo, Manuel Guillermo Ruiz, who was a person who had a WhatsApp campaign providing us support, and our Cuban brothers. I owe them a lot of answers for many things that they have said. And to Major Jose Zambrano and Captain Rafael Tesorero of the Foundation Pueblo Soberano, and all the people who have called us and showed their support and solidarity for our situation. And maybe this shows a clear hit against human rights of Venezuelans, because when you deny us medicine and food, you are, of course, entailing a problem of human rights, and this is how it should be dealt with. We're going to do this in the following times. This is part of the asymmetric war and part of the psychological attack that General Gonzalez was speaking about. We have a single minute to close. I would like to give you my pointer. This is the general's pointer. Yes, I used this one in the university. The University of the Armed Forces, yes, the UNEFA. So we have the world map there. So we are allowed to move, and we have a lot of space. And there are a lot of issues in the geopolitical world that are influencing the Colombian state nation that affect us. For example, Mr. Trump, as you call him, the maniac of the White House, who's the commander in chief, and wants to apply things about the military forces. However, President Putin, during this year and last years, has clearly stated, and we don't need a lot of words to understand this, Russia has strategic allies, and they have agreements signed with many countries that are allies of Latin America, including Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, and others. So this is one of the readings. It's a clear message, because this is a person who comes from the KGB. He knows how much our worth is worth. And also the president of China, who has also sent his own message. A war fight here with Venezuela is not with Venezuela, it's in the region. It involves all the region. So they would want to involve this because they are here with the NATO. I worked with the NATO in the Cold War with the Army and the German Air Force, and I know how things work. Putting members of the NATO is just to justify this, that whenever there is a problem, then it must be supported. And this is how this country, the biggest producer of drugs, the biggest trader, they have this. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time, but I had some elements to show the relationship about what is this from the economic perspective, what is the drug production in Colombia and how this affects us here in Venezuela. It affects us in every single circumstance, and they are only hurt economically. This is very good because with the military pointer I use, well, this is also military, because it comes from material. You can use it on site as well. So Mr. Coordinator is giving us the sign. So I have never seen something like this before. He's a great coordinator, and we are proud of having him as part of our show. It has been a pleasure having you with us, and we will need to have you back. This is what we're going to say every time that it's needed to defend our nation. This is what we need to do, and we're at your service for you and the rest of Venezuela and the world, to show them what they want to do with us. Because we are the victims of an international maneuver, and this is part of the war that we're going to answer with. We're at your service. Director, the floor is all yours.
Oof.